Top of the morning, Dan and Amy. Interesting piece in the Washington Examiner. Can the Border Patrol survive Joe Biden? By Anna Giaritelli. 4 agents spoke to her anonymously about the concerns they have, even though they do risk termination by doing so. The rising frustration among agents has manifested itself in leaked videos of the rank and file and angry confrontations with the leadership in recent private meetings. Yeah, we discussed one a couple of weeks ago on this show, one of those videos where Raul Ortiz, who's the head of patrol, and along with Mayorkas, the head of DHS, were going around to different hotspots on the southern border trying to rally the rank and file, and they were getting pretty significant pushback, weren't they? So the question is, the existential question, and I hate to use that word because it's overused, but when you're asking, can the Border Patrol survive, that by definition is existential. To help us answer that question, let's enlist an expert. He is Mark Morgan, who is former U.S. Customs and Border Patrol and Border Protection Commissioner. Mark, thanks for joining us again. Appreciate it.
Absolutely. Thanks for having me, Dan and Amy.
Is it that serious with the status of Border Patrol that people are, including Border Patrol agents, are openly questioning whether the agency can survive in its current form?
No, I think it's an absolutely fair question, and it is that bad. I think as far as the morale, it's the worst in the history of the Border Patrol since its inception in 1927. Look, the Border Patrol really prides themselves of being somewhat of a paramilitary organization in a few aspects, and one of them is the rank structure and everything that goes along with that, the respect and et cetera, right? So for an agent during a muster to actually physically turn his back on the secretary of DHS really says it all, Dan. I mean, it's never happened in the history. I think it absolutely is representational of the frustration, of the anger that they have. And here's the thing, real quick. So if you listen to their exchange with the DHS secretary and their own chief, which is also unconscionable, his actions, they weren't asking for additional pay. They weren't asking for additional vacation days. They weren't asking for any benefits for themselves. They were asking, please give us back the tools that we had under the Trump administration to do our job, to secure the border and protect the country. And what did they get from the secretary and their own chief? They dismissed them with a level of arrogance that we've become accustomed to. And they basically said, hey, you know what? It is what it is. Shut up and take it.
Well, did they give them their horses back? Because I know they took the horses away after that. You know, they alleged that a Haitian immigrant was whipped.
Yeah, a complete lie, right? And we saw that from the Secretary of DHS, right, who was a former prosecutor. He knows better. I mean, he got out there publicly and acted as a judge, jury, and executioner and vilified them and talked about facts before a single interview was conducted. And then he allowed the President of the United States to use his bully pulpit to vilify these guys. And what did we find out? It was absolutely a lie. They don't carry whips. They weren't whipping anybody, but yet they have done nothing to counter that, to regain those individuals' reputation. That is why the men and women have absolutely zero trust and no confidence in their leaders.
Yeah, it was an amazing statement Mayorkas made when that investigation, well, I guess that investigation is still pending. I haven't heard a conclusion on it. I haven't heard, as you said, a clearing of the names of those officers that were assigned to desk duty after the videos were released. But Mayorkas, as you say, a former federal prosecutor, he said we have to investigate because of people's perception of what happened, which is a remarkable statement for a former prosecutor to make. You investigate things you believed happened, that there's evidence happened, not because some people have a misunderstanding of what happened.
That's exactly right. Dan, I couldn't have said it better myself, and I've been in investigations for over 30 years. Look, here's what we do as trained investigators, as special agents in federal government. We follow the facts. We don't follow our personal ideology. We don't follow perceptions. We don't follow politics. We follow facts. And this man, Secretary Mayorkas, he knows better. Shame on him. And look, but their distrust in him started from day one, because this is the guy that has become the chief architect. He supported removing the Romania-Mexico program, which was an effective program. He stopped building the wall, which every agent on the front line knows as part of that multi-layer strategy of infrastructure, technology, personnel works. I can keep going on and on. So what he did with the horses and what he did by the agents turning their back, that is just, piling on with respect to the degree that they have no respect in this guy. That starts jeopardizing their ability to do their job.
Some of the comments from these Border Patrol agents that spoke anonymously to this Washington Examiner reporter, one said, our job is a joke. The other, who works in the senior capacity in Texas, said, the U.S. Border Patrol has become part of the alien smuggling operation by aiding, abetting, and facilitating the illegal alien movements through the U.S. The very same thing we swore to protect against is what we've now become.
So look, think about that. This is coming from the men and women who every single day get up and risk their lives, and all they want to do is protect this country through securing our borders, and they are seeing that this administration has wiped that ability away. Look, from their own agents said it's a joke. Aiding and abetting, and we've been for a long time. They've been forced to by this administration to aid and abet. They know now that the individuals coming across, they're basically a travel agency now. Mm-hmm. I mean, literally, they have someone come across the border illegally. In a couple hours, they are forced and told, you process as fast as possible, just get better at processing, and then release them into the interior United States, knowing that Secretary Mayorkas has reduced 90% of ICE's interior enforcement authority to actually remove them once they've been here illegally.
And meanwhile,
agents know it, that's why they're mad.
Tens of thousands, have been, there have been tens of thousands encounters of immigrants at the border. In Biden's first year, they've quadrupled over the past decade. How is this going to end? What can we do?
Tens of thousands, 2 million.
2 million, right.
The first year. That's right. The first year is the right way to say it, Amy, because I don't want to talk fiscal year because that gives him almost 3.5 months credit on the Trump administration. So the first 12 months calendar, 2.1 million apprehensions. Here's encounters. Here's another number, though, 600,000 gotaways. Because agents are pulled off the border to be a travel service, large area of the borders go wide open and secured. 600,000 illegal aliens have broken into our country, evaded apprehension, and made their way to every town, city, and state. And here's a fact that you'll never hear from this administration. Among that 600,000 are some really bad people. There are murderers, there are rapists, and there are pedophiles. Not to mention, because our borders are wide open, the drugs pouring across the border, again, making their way to every state. We've heard the reports of 100,000 drug overdoses. This is why I get so fired up. This should not be a right or left thing. Securing our borders and protecting our country should be an American thing. And that's why I'm so frustrated.
Well, right. And Lieutenant Colonel Jim Carafano, the Heritage Foundation, in our last conversation with him, he talked, too, about his concern that there will be the next terrorist attack, if there is one. Hopefully there isn't. But if there is, it's going to come from somebody or some buddies that come through our southern border. And if that were to come to pass, then not only are you say, well, where was Border Patrol? Because politicians never blame themselves. Or, we'll look at these agencies and say, why didn't you stop this? And number two, if you're a rank and file agent, again, you're part of the attraction of the job, as you say, is keeping America safe. And to have something like that happen on your watch, potentially, which could have been prevented if you were allowed to do your job, has to be, extremely exasperating.
Dan, again, I tell you what, I could not have said it better myself. Look, I know Jim well. He's a good friend. He's absolutely correct. Let me give you a couple of stats. In the last 12 months, Border Patrol have apprehended illegal aliens from 150 different countries. This isn't just a Mexico or Northern Triangle issue. 150 different countries, including China, Ukraine, Russia. I could keep going on and on. In that same 12-month period, they apprehended 15 illegal aliens on the FBI's terror screening database. And look, we know what's happened in Afghanistan. It has returned to a safe haven for terrorists, operating base. And you don't think that their commitment has changed one bit to do us harm, both abroad and here in the United States? Of course it hasn't changed. It's stronger than ever, and they have to go look no further than our southwest border to find a wide open area that they can exploit to continue to do harm to us here and abroad. That's a fact.
And there's something else, too. It just this continues to amaze me. as you mentioned, some small fraction, but a small fraction of a big number is a big problem. People come into this country, they commit crimes, and they still stay in this country, or they're back in this country. Joni Ernst, Senator, Elise Stefanik, Congresswoman, have authored legislation called the Begone Act, which would include sexual assault and other forms of aggravated sexual violence as disqualifying crimes for immigrants seeking residence in the United States, if they're unnaturalized citizens, of course, as well as for deportable offenses for immigrants already living in the United States as well. And it's just there is, no one takes the position, no politician takes the position, oh yeah, people who commit sexual assault or other violent crimes should be allowed to stay in this country. And yet the federal government can't even effectively do that job. It seems to me like if you can't remove criminals, convicted criminals of serious offenses from this country, then we shouldn't even be talking about anything else until you prove to us that you can do that.
That is exactly right. That's what we've been saying for a very long time. Before there's any talk, look, as a law enforcement officer, I'll never be able to support amnesty. I'll never be able to support rewarding somebody for committing a criminal act. But that's going to be a political issue. But before we start talking about that, Dan, I could not agree more. It should be first and foremost, let's secure our borders. Look, that is the constitutional duty and responsibility of government is to protect the states. Secure our borders first before we have any other discussion. But isn't it sad that we have to have congressional members actually put proposals together that says, hey, if you're a criminal, you shouldn't be allowed in the United States? I mean, doesn't that just defy reality and common sense? Look, but let me be clear. DHS Secretary Mayorkas, he's reduced 90% of ICE's interior enforcement operations right now. Well, guess what? Guess what they do every year? 90% of who they arrest in the interior are illegal aliens that have already been convicted of a crime or have pending criminal charges. And so when he's reduced their ability to do their job, that means there are more criminals walking the streets in our communities. That's what this administration and that's what this secretary is doing.
With respect to these secret flights that were reported upon, and you had governors, but like DeSantis trying to raise the profile on this, suggesting he'll bus them to Delaware if you want them in the interior of the country. What is your understanding of where the administration is right now? Are those secret flights depositing some of these 600,000 people that have been encountered trying to enter illegally and have been allowed to enter illegally? Are those still happening?
Yeah, you mean the flights that happen at 2 a.m. with absolutely no coordination with top state officials that they're going to, that the administration refused to acknowledge as secret flights? We both know that if they saw a perceived benefit from that, they'd be doing these flights in broad daylight and they'd have media and ticker tape parades, right? So it's just the hypocrisy and the lie. But look, those flights have been going on since day one, but there's multiple levels of flights going on, right? So the flights that we've seen in the secret of that's mainly unaccompanied minors. They illegally enter, Border Patrol gives them to HHS, who then flies them anywhere in the country they want to go and they can find a sponsor. The other element that's happening is if you're a family, you break in their country illegally, Border Patrol apprehends you, then they release them locally into NGOs, non-governmental organizations, who are subsidized by the federal government, who then gives them a plane ticket to fly commercially anywhere in the United States they want to go. And now what we just recently seen is that's what they're doing with single adults now. Single adults now, Border Patrol is transferring to ICE, who then surreptitiously is giving them to the NGOs. We saw those videos of where they have a parking structure, and they're letting them in the front door and trying to secretly release them out the back door in taxis and Ubers to go to the airport. So right now, it doesn't matter what demographic you are, you illegally break in their country, illegally entering, knowingly with intent file a false claim, doesn't matter. We're going to release you in the United States, and then ICE is going to be forbidden to deport you.
He is Mark Morgan, former U.S. Customs and Border Protection Commissioner. Mark, thanks as always for joining us. Appreciate it.
Thank you both.
Thank you, and he joined us on our turnkey.pro answer line.
You're listening to Chicago's Morning Answer with Dan Proft and Amy Jacobson on AM 560. The Answer.
You have faced uncertainty and anxiety, and now your retirement is looming. You might be asking yourself, did I put enough away? Will I have to pay a lot of taxes? Will my spouse be okay if something happens to me? Total Clarity Wealth Management can offer answers and help alleviate your anxieties. With a professional team of financial advisors and CPAs, they can show you the way to financial readiness and keep you on track. Their philosophy is built on solid relationships and trust. With access to expertise in tax planning strategies, 401k rollover services, estate planning, they can help you be ready for anything and give you confidence. Call Total Clarity Wealth Management. Call 630-762-9352. TotalClarityWealth.com. That's TotalClarityWealth.com. Also, if you're a wealth advisor who believes you should be doing the right thing for your client and likes to build relationships, talk to Total Clarity Wealth about joining their team.
Securities offered through LPL Financial. Member FINRA SIPC.